But yeah, that should do it. So why did I have to go to that extreme? Well, because of this.
It's too tight.
Now that's a problem. But now I have another problem. It's too big. Okay, no more drilling holes in bad records. And stick around at the very end of this video for a little bit of a rant. But actually, this record wasn't all that bad. I bought it at an online auction sight unseen, and it was only, I think, $5. So I really wasn't out much money. And when it showed up, it had the scratch to end all scratches. So I thought I would enlist it for this video. But the problem is real, right? Not so much the scratches, although that's a problem too. But the problem we're talking about today is spindle holes that are too small. So small, in fact, that you have to practically push the record onto the platter, and then you have to wiggle it back and forth to get it off. If you're lucky, nothing goes wrong in doing that. Now, I don't recall this being an issue in the past. And when I say past, I'm talking distant past, my distant past, like 40 years ago when I first started collecting records. And I want to say that this is a recent phenomenon, and it seems to be one that happens with 180 gram records, although not exclusively 180 gram records. A few years ago, when this channel was a little bit younger and I was learning how to do all this stuff, I did a video on fixing tight spindle holes with a pencil. It really is a valid solution, but it does take a frustratingly long time depending on how tight that hole is. I also ended up with yellow paint all over the record, which I had to clean off. So instead, I then turned to this. Now, I'm just kidding. I didn't turn to this. I actually turned to this. And I think I talked about this before. It's my favorite screwdriver, and the head of which actually fits the hole perfectly for widening the hole. I've had this screwdriver for like 30 years. But the problem is, I use it for what it's supposed to be for, and that's screwing screws. Screwing screws? Screwing screws. And as a result, sometimes after I'm done using it for what it's actually used for, I end up setting it down and forgetting where I set it down. So because of Mandy's honey-do list, I end up misplacing that screwdriver all the time because I'm scatterbrained. And as a result, when I realize that I have misplaced it and I run into a tight spindle hole again, I resort back to using this. So what about this? What if some entrepreneurial spirit set their sights on actually fixing the problem? Maybe not at the pressing plants where the records are made, but aftermarket, once it's in the hands of the consumer. That would be a really cool idea. So I did a little bit of a search. Now I'm Googling for a solution and landed here. Now check this out. Vinyl Center Hole Reamer. Love that name. Is this seriously a thing? And yeah, the angels sang. Well, my heart sang. So it's time to replace this, and this, and this with this. This unassuming round little guy was thoughtfully designed and invented by the folks at Stable 33 1/3. 33 1/3 being the speed that you spin a 12-inch record at. But you knew that. And you don't even need instructions. It's really almost self-evident how you use this thing. You just pop it off. You see, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a little screw attached to the inside of it. So all you do is hold your record in place, line this fancy little reamer up with the hole, give it a small twist. Bingo. Perfect fit. Ingenious, right? I love this little thing. And it's going to, because you can't use it for anything else except for what it's meant for, it's going to sit right next to my turntable for the next time a tight spindle hole comes along. So how much do you think you would pay for the convenience of this? $100? $75? How about for a little bit over the price of a 180 gram vinyl record? I'm telling you, this solves first world problems. But for folks like us, those first world problems can be a real pain in the Well, you know what I'm trying to say. I love this thing so much. I wish I was independent. I wish I had thought of it, to be honest. And I also wish I was independently wealthy. I would buy a truckload of these and give one out to every single person watching. I mean it, I would. I love simple solutions to small problems that can quickly turn into big headaches. And while I'm talking about headaches and simple solutions, check this out. And the simple solution? I hated to do that actually, and I almost never do, but seriously, cartridge shaming? I didn't even know that was a thing. Apparently, if you haven't yet had the opportunity or the money to buy a moving coil cartridge, you have no right to talk about vinyl records. But I didn't just delete it because of that. I did it because I didn't want somebody coming to this channel, reading the comments, and then because they don't have a higher end moving magnet cartridge or a moving coil cartridge, I don't want them to feel ashamed of it or feel that they don't belong here. That is so not the case. Now, I can't tell you what my first cartridge was back when I was like 16, 17 years old, but I can tell you when I got back into vinyl records, say 10 or actually, it's probably 12 or 14 years ago, maybe around 12 years ago. But whatever the case, I know it was like a $25 Audio Technica cartridge, and it sounded fine. And then I upgraded my turntable, and the cartridge on that one sounded fine too, and so on until I landed where I am today. Now, over time, I saved money and I upgraded, and I would say I probably upgraded my cartridge 5 times in the last 5 years. And most of the time, they sound better with each upgrade. I am testing something, though, that I probably will post about that kind of flies in the face of the idea that spending a little bit more money means a better sounding cartridge. The bottom line here is the joy of vinyl. This channel is about the experience of listening to the music on vinyl, not about the gear. It's never been about the gear. The gear is great, and I love talking about gear and talking about sometimes higher end gear that maybe I can't even afford yet. But it really boils down to the music. Everybody watching should feel comfortable sharing their insights and their preferences regardless of the equipment that they're playing their records on. But anyway, my next cartridge may in fact be a moving coil cartridge, and it has nothing to do with that comment. It's because I've been saving my money and I would really like to try a moving coil cartridge out, but I might not, because in order to do so, I'll need a step-up transformer, and that costs a little bit more money as well. Now, I really do, I bet that there's someone who watches this channel who's thinking right now, Rick, you don't need a step-up transformer. The phono stage you have handles moving coil cartridge. Well, that's a topic for another video, and one that I'm very excited to talk about, but I'll hold off on that. And until then, check out this video and also go to that website I told you about. They have some really cool things alongside the reamer that we just discussed. So until next time, thank you for being here, and take care of yourself and enjoy your records.